This territory called the Gold Coast was colonized by the British, and it was all that coastal regions had either the British, the French, or the Portuguese competing and extending their control from the coast into the interior. The British were there from the 19th century, the early middle 19th century. They imposed no head tax on the people, individual tax for each one within a chiefdom. The chief or the Asantehini had to collect tax for each one. No, they didn't. They practiced indirect rule using the chiefs. And it was a sort of model colony for the British. There was also no military recruitment of the locals to serve in the local military. Okay. Now, the change that I want to talk about starts in the 1940s, when only then they imposed an income tax on the locals. And until that point, there was no independence movement. The main force was the governor and the colonial government that set the terms of the relationship between the state and the locals. The government and the governor and a variety of chiefs, but the leading actor was definitely the government. There was little organized opposition. In the 40s, there were some changes, such as the income tax, a Native Authorities Act that brought together the small states and the chieftaincies, and a constitution was issued for the colony in 1946. And in 1948, they opened up the administration, the higher levels of the colonial administration, to the locals. Now, the 1946 constitution simply was a constitution to integrate the regions, to bring the coast and the interior together and to create better conditions for administration. It actually didn't expand opportunities for the locals to participate in the government of the colony. Economically, Ghana was a typical colony. One product was focused on, and that was cocoa. There was some mining for gold because they knew there was gold. There was some mining for diamonds and manganese, but basically you turn these colonies into one product colonies. You just export one thing, you exploit the country for one thing or for a couple of things, but you don't diversify the economy or anything like that. And cocoa was demanding at the time very good prices, world prices. So in fact, lots of money potentially could go back into the colony because the world price for cocoa was high. When I said that the civil service was being Africanized from 1948 onwards, in 1948 they began with 171 black Africans in the civil service. By the time of independence, there were 3,000 black locals in the civil service. Something that we can identify with the changes here, except that there was little before 94, isn't it? Already very few people. But maybe in the Bantustans and so on there were. Now, what led to the rise of nationalism in Ghana? and the nationalist movement that led to independence. It's a very short history. It's not a history like South Africa, 1912 and all that, very long history. Remember this, in other African countries, the nationalist narrative, the nationalist trajectory is a very narrow one. It's a very compressed one. It doesn't have the long tradition here that we have in this country. So they are very different styles and very different outcomes.